I'm attorney Chris Reich with Craft Law Guys, and today we're talking with immigration attorney Jessica Cadavid, and we're going to kind of talk about the intersection of misdemeanor criminal charges and immigration.
Hi, Chris. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you bet. Thanks for joining me. I really appreciate it. You've got so much good information to share, important stuff too. It seems like that most people aren't aware of until it's too late to make any changes to it.
That's exactly right. Simple things like a citation or a traffic violation, we often don't really associate with having large impact in our immigration status. But when you're seeking whether legal permanent status in the United States or you're looking to naturalize, become a US citizen, these are questions that are going to come up because the previous administration has added additional language to deep further into your background. And we can touch on those changes and how they have affected others in the last 4 years or so.
That sounds good. But I guess first, how did you get into this field? Because it's kind of a real legal niche.
Yeah, so immigration is a really very small niche. We are a super friendly bar because we are all friends,
Nice.
and so we're really small, and so we really all know each other, and we're friends. And immigration wasn't my first choice. I am an immigrant. I wanted to be a civil litigator, and I realized that was not my jam. And I got a job at an immigration law firm, loved it, learned a lot, and then started kind of moving through this system. I really learned the way of helping others really made me joyful, and it really made me happy to see a lot of faces and a lot of joyful stories that made me feel like I made a difference in somebody else's day.
That's awesome. It probably helps to have had some personal experience, kind of a similar experience.
Yeah, and it was kind of interesting. I've been through the system completely. I did my legal permanent residency, I did naturalization, I did all of it. And so now I can see that that aspect of my life is extremely helpful when I'm helping my clients go through that process because I picture myself. How would I want help? How would I want somebody to help me? And the way that I was helped was wonderful. So I do that for others.
Awesome. That sounds satisfying, and glad to have folks like you to help too.
Yeah, immigration's a really big issue, and the people that are going through it, it's a difficult time, and there's a lot of unknowns, a lot of questions, and deep uncertainty on an everyday life and on everyday issues that we don't necessarily think as being a big issue for ourselves.
No, we got quite a mixture of clients, probably Arizona. So we got a lot of people that are here on work and student visas who are here vacationing. We're also a border state, so we get people all sorts of immigration statuses getting traffic tickets out driving
Yeah.
around. And so for somebody that who's a U.S. citizen getting any kind of traffic ticket really is annoying, but it's not going to derail them in their life typically.
That's
But
correct.
that's totally different if you're not a citizen, right?
Correct.
Definitely.
So, even as, like you said, being an immigrant doesn't necessarily mean you're living here forever. It could also mean you're here on temporary business. You can be here on tourism. You can be here on a student visa, and all of that can be affected by a traffic citation. Arizona is one of the few states that gives a driver's license or temporary driver's license to those abroad, right? So if you're here vacationing and if you want to drive, you have the right to drive. But what happens when you get in trouble? How is that going to look for your renewal of your visa? Or if you're looking to have any other process that can also be challenging due to certain wordage within the documentation needed to be filed.
Mm. Maybe we could look at kind of a few different immigration statuses and how that
Yes,
might work out if you got a criminal traffic ticket. We're talking misdemeanors here. Uh,
of course.
no, there aren't really. I guess you could do it anyway. We're talking misdemeanor traffic violations and civil ones, no felony stuff. So if
Yes.
you're undocumented, and let's say you get excessive speed ticket. So you get a misdemeanor ticket for driving too fast. How could that impact you?
So, being undocumented and receiving a speeding ticket can sometimes be extremely dangerous. So, there are certain things that will affect you. One of them is the fact that you've now entered the quote unquote
Mm,
system, right? So, now you're in front of a police officer that is going to be asking you for your name, information, asking for documentation, and asking for a driver's license that you may not have. Due to that, then what happens is now you've entered the court system, right? Whether you have to pay a fine or have to undergo a class, that becomes part of your record. Also, at that stop, if you do not have the proper documentation, that stop can turn into, unfortunately, an immigration detention
oof.
where you can see yourself in a deportation office or in front of ICE. And so making sure that you adhere to traffic laws, it's something sometimes very silly,
Um,
but sometimes really important because the officer has the right to contact ICE in order to let them know that you do not have the proper documentation and that they should be able to check you out. And that's completely at their discretion. So having a simple stop because you didn't stop at a stop sign, or having a simple traffic violation as a I ran a red light or I'm excessive speeding, those simple things can now turn you into a nightmare of having to face detention, having to see an immigration judge, and
mm.
having to look at a very long line of small to big issues that you weren't adhering to by just simply driving the speed limit.
And so it sounds like just the actual traffic stop could lead to all these problems, or not even to the conviction part.
No, a
Oh,
traffic stop is equally as dangerous for somebody who is undocumented for the fact that during a traffic stop, all your information has to be written down, right? Your driver's license number. Well, now you don't have a driver's license
yeah.
because you're not in the system, or maybe you're driving with a driver's license that is not a real document. So now you're looking at a fraudulent document charge. And so that's problematic on its own along with other citations. And so, on top of all of that, then you also have the risk of, well, they have the discretion to contact ICE. And many traffic stops, not just for yourself, but for your passenger, right? Can
Oh, yeah.
become something extremely dangerous because you will be brought to a detention center to be checked out in your documentation to make sure that you are here in the country lawfully.
And this
And
just
it's
all
not.
depends on the mood of the cop.
Yes, it all depends on the officer. It also depends on certain, unfortunately, police departments.
Yeah.
So, for example, a example in olden times, if you were stopped by a sheriff, you knew that ICE would be contacted.
Oh, really?
But that was the policy of the Maricopa Sheriff under Joe Pyle. A lot of things have changed, but it really is dependent on that officer, right? Sometimes it's minor, it's okay, but sometimes it isn't. Also depends on the administration. As you know, immigration is not a certain thing, but it's based on the discretion of the other meaning any law enforcement on the other side of how they are with your issue and situation.
Hmm. Well, all right. So let's say you make it through the traffic stop and you don't get detained, and now you're in the court process.
So during the court process, if you are undocumented, then this is going to become part of your record. If you have not any contact with ICE, it's extremely important that you pay all of your fines, that you deal with this situation due to the fact that at any point, if you have a chance for adjustment, or if unfortunately you do end up in detention or in front of an immigration judge, you can show and determine our standard is a good moral character standard. And that means that you have to demonstrate how good you are, right? It really is. How moral are we? And in that, demonstrating that all my traffic tickets have been paid. I was responsible, even though I was scared, because it could have severe consequences for you being somebody undocumented. I want to demonstrate that everything has been paid, everything has been in order, because that is the moral person that I am. A lot of times, and what I see in my practice is sometimes these traffic tickets are just, they become very afraid and they let them go, right? And they accumulate court fines, other things. Well, later down the road, they want to adjust. There's an opportunity for a petition through their children, through their spouse, through the law changing. Well, these traffic tickets that you didn't take care of are going to come back and hunt you, period. They're part of your record. They're part of your fingerprints. They're part of your name and information and date of birth. And so what happens with those old tickets now, they're going to be an impediment for you to be able to move forward. So something very, very simple can have very, very, very large impact, and not just your right now life, but the future of your life if they're not dealt with correctly.
But let's say you get, well, obviously, best case is you get it dismissed and
Yay.
you move forward. Let's say though that you're found guilty for a misdemeanor speeding ticket.
Of
Now,
course.
is that something? What's the court going to do generally with that information? Can they
So,
report that to the federal
yes.
authorities?
Yes. So, as you know, we are not in a sanctuary city or state. And so what that means is that any law enforcement, courts, all the way to, like I said, police officers are able to contact ICE if you have any contact with them, right? It is the job of law enforcement to overturn someone that they feel or that they know or have certain knowledge that are not here in our country lawfully.
And this just depends on the particular policies of the
Yes.
individual
It
judge.
pertains on the particular policies. Certain places, certain courts, certain departments have a strict enforcement policy. Some have a discretionary policy. Some, like I said, it's kind of dependent on who you are and the person that you kind of end up dealing with. But these very simple things can have very, very large impact in your life.
Let's say so you're undocumented, you get this misdemeanor conviction, nobody reports you anything, you go about your business. Then let's say you leave the country, and then let's say you try and come back in lawfully.
Yeah.
How's
So
that conviction going to come into play at that point?
yeah, so trying to come back in lawfully, that would be you've decided to leave the country, so you're going to be dealing now with the US consulate in Mexico. The US consulate in Mexico and the USCIS, United States Citizenship and Immigration Services here, really operate within the same forms. And I'm going to show you a little bit about what exactly are the questions that get asked, because those are very important questions, right? The questions are always asked, have you ever been arrested? Have you ever been detained, right? What is a detention? What is exactly, or have you ever been cited? So let me, I'll share with that information with you so you're able to see it. Am I able to share my screen with you?
Hmm.
Oh, yes. Give me one second. So those are informations that will be, and this simple traffic citation, it's something that you're going to have to disclose. Why? Because when any case comes up at all, the problem becomes this. You will have a set of fingerprints,
Um,
right?
well,
Every
when you're trying to come in, 'cause a lot of times misdemeanor stuff, it varies. Usually, there's no fingerprints. Like
technically,
check the
but
background.
What happens is those fingerprints for
Yeah.
us are run against several systems
Okay.
across the board. So it goes
They
not just
fingerprint you when you're trying to come back in, and then they run it
yes.
everywhere. Got it.
Yes. So those fingerprints, you for us in every case that you have, it doesn't matter from renewing your green card to becoming a citizen to coming into the country, you're going to have a picture and fingerprints taken.
Gotcha.
That picture and those fingerprints taken will be run against 7 different systems, including state, federal, Facebook, internet, to see who you are.
Mm,
Who you are isn't just somebody who is a felon. We want to know in depth in our system, not just if you are a criminal, but who are you in the nitty gritty? What are your opinions to coming in? One of the things is disclosing Facebook tags, names of Instagram, any email that you've ever had, any kind of social media contact that you have. All of that is has to be disclosed to the U.S. government, and if not, it gets kind of a little scary because it sounds like Big Brother. But for example, things like Tinder, things like, bagel and cheese or something like this,
yeah.
they get run to make sure that, if you say you're married, but you're on Tinder, you're not here. So all of that gets run against state backgrounds, and that's where misdemeanors come in. So if anything gets reported out there, they're going to want to know about it. But also, more than that, is a full disclosure, meaning that even if they don't know about it, you have to tell them about it,
Because it's
right?
worse if you don't tell them and then they find out about it, then you're cooked.
Exactly. So, one of the things is our questions run to ask if they have ever. These questions were changed during the Trump administration, which changed our timeline for disclosures. Many times, the timelines for disclosures were about 5 to 10 years, right? What
Yeah.
have you been doing the last five
Oh,
years? What have you been doing the last 10
now
years,
it's
right?
over.
So if things were outside of that time, hey, I don't really have that level of disclosure. I don't have that duty of disclosure. However, that changed under the Trump administration by adding further backgrounds, not just to every case, but making sure that those questions, also known as those timelines, have been enlarged. The questions now ask, have you ever, meaning meaning ever, ever, right? It's really hard as a lawyer because it's an overbroad
Uh,
question that is very much what we believe it's unconstitutional because it covers too many things, right?
right.
We work on a constitutional standard, so overbroad, overbreath is one of the things that we look at. However, this has not been brought up to a challenge. It's here to stay, and so this is for the last 4 years. This has been our reporting and our duty to show. So I am going to see if I can share my screen and then oh, hold on.
So if you disclose this misdemeanor speeding violation, um, is that something that's going to prevent entry, or is that something that's going to require an explanation?
So for us, simple things like misdemeanors are not a one and all because, like I said, we work on a moral standard, but we're looking at a balance of good versus bad, right? Are we having simply one ticket ever? Or are we looking at a consistent repeat offender? Or are we looking at somebody who is not obeying the basic simple of traffic laws, right? One of the things that it's kind of sneaky. It's, do you have more than 3 speeding tickets?
Yeah. Yes.
Right? Having more than 3 speeding tickets sounds silly, but USCIS, consulates, and other issues, you're not considered a law abiding citizen, right? One is a misdemeanor, two keeps going, and three, again, hey,
We have
what is
a
the
pattern.
lesson that you've learned, right? What is that what is it that you are looking at? So anything that is a consistent pattern, a consistent repeat of issues, um, it's something that we really take a look at, right? Because for us, the government's job is to tell us no and find reasons to tell us no. Our job is to find ways to say yes. And there must be a balance in between, right? Between what has this person done that is really good? Hey, they've paid all their taxes. They've never had any other issues. They've learned their lesson. We're sorry we didn't adhere to basic traffic laws. Or is this a consistent pattern of, hey, I'm not obeying, period?
Hmm. And so, okay, so it sounds like there's a lot of gray area with something low level like a criminal
Yes.
speeding ticket. What about if it's like a DUI or a leaving the scene of an accident charge,
Ooh.
something like that?
So those are a little bit bigger, right?
Yeah.
So anything that has to do with a DUI is taken extremely serious by immigration. It is an extremely serious offense due to the fact that whether from misdemeanor all the way to any type of criminal offense and felony, the issue is that not only you have put your life at risk, but you have put the risk of lives of others on the road, right? And those others on the road are Americans. And so that balancing is extremely hard, and DUIs often, very often, not only land people in deportation, but also really truly prevent them from seeking status. For example, DACA is one. Young people, out there that have DACA, they find themselves with a DUI. Well, that has extreme, extreme consequences, right? Same thing for naturalization. It will prevent you from naturalizing due to the fact that you did not meet a good moral character standard. And so it can have severe, severe consequences. Same thing with criminal speeding. All of it due to the fact that now you're not, hey, I'm very good. Now you got criminal behind in your background. And so because you have that tag, I hate to say that, now we got to take a look deeper into who you really are, and are you a person that we want here? And those are the questions that the officers are having to ask themselves, and we are having to balance that. So those are some things very important to acknowledge or know when you are facing, hey, I have a speeding ticket. Hey, man, I should have taken an Uber, but I didn't. I got in my car, right? Those are very serious things that you not only you must consult with a criminal attorney, but you also must consult with an immigration attorney to see what are you looking and what is the road going to look like down the road for you because of this.
Yeah, it seems like it make a lot of sense to talk to you if you're dealing with something like that, so you at least understand how that all could fit into your future.
Yes, right? This is really important. Knowledge is the most important thing about immigration. Why? Because our laws are not inputted into stone. Our laws change very often. There's clients that haven't had a path and things change, and now you have a path, right? We're looking at a possible change of reform. Hey, you got a background. If reform comes around, what is going to be that they're going to take a look at if you have not taken care of this, right? And so those are really important. Our office provides consultations, and we do them via Zoom as well. So yeah, hey, once we hit the pandemic, we changed a lot, and part of that is we do nighttime consultations in the evening, so it's really
Yeah.
easy because you're at home. Hey, I'm not asking you to miss work, but I am asking you, hey, this is important and you got to take care of it, because I don't want it to come out of the closet like Halloween on the middle of your adjustment and be like, ta-da, you forgot about me.
Uh,
Skeletons are the worst.
yeah, I can imagine. Um, okay, so are there any misdemeanors just like a complete bar, or it's just kind of like you might have to wait some time, let it get older and show that you've kind of reformed to
There's
either
a
get
couple.
reentry or.
the misdemeanors that are a complete bar is really going to be a DUI.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes, so DUIs are extreme for really mostly anybody and going through an immigration process. A DUI is a very, very high crime, mainly because it's a crime of knowledge. You
Yeah.
had a choice. You got in the car,
Yeah.
right? You put other people at risk. And it's one of the things that I've been doing this job for about 7 years now. And it's one of those things that I see judges, officers, because we all understand that drinking and driving is bad. That's kind of the bottom line. And so if we're starting from it's bad and you already did it, your officer isn't looking at that kindly.
Yeah.
Right. And because we all have a societal understanding of, hey, drinking and driving is bad, it puts people at risk, it kills people. No, don't do it. And if you do, hey, it's going to come down pretty hard. You're already starting at a no place. Don't start less.
Yeah. So, talking DUIs, how does marijuana play in all this these days when we have states making it legal, but it's still illegal at the federal level?
So here is my take on cannabis. Cannabis is still a Schedule 1 drug, and it is still an absolute no for any kind of immigration purposes. Cannabis is still part of the medical determination. So in any type of case, so if you're looking to come into the United States, you're going to have a medical exam. If you're in the United States looking to adjust, you're going to have a medical exam, right? And you're going to have a blood test because they're looking for drugs, right? We are looking for drugs. That is it. Marijuana, even though it has proven to have extreme medicinal um, properties, and states realize that that is not the case of the federal government, and we follow federal law, and that means it is a Schedule 1 drug. If you use it, touch it, see it, smell it, it's not good.
So a conviction for possession is that's all.
Yeah, it's a conviction. It's no, it has there's lots of drug questions
Gotcha.
on all of the forms. Three more drug questions were added because drugs are very serious. One of the things that it's easy way to understand, there's a war on drugs, period, right? Which side are you on? And that is the what goes through our officers' minds. Hey, there's a war on drugs. Are you doing drugs? Then that means that you're okay with drugs, and we're not okay with drugs. We don't want drugs in our communities. We don't want drugs in all of that. Even though its cannabis has shown to have extreme medicinal properties, it is just like alcohol, especially here in Arizona and Portland, lots of the West Coast. Unfortunately, that's not the case for the federal government. We have a conflict in the law. And because we have a conflict in the law, then we look to conflict in the law, right? Law and federal rule trumps over any state law. So, unfortunately, for those out there, no. One of the things that can be dangerous, and this is interesting, is the fact that what about your spouse, right? You're a US citizen and you have the freedom to engage in recreational medicinal use of cannabis, but your spouse is undocumented, going through an immigration process, or looking to naturalize, right? And so now not only do you have a conflict in the law, but you also have a conflict in your house
Yeah.
because unfortunately, it's still a Schedule 1 drug.
Hmm.
It doesn't matter how you take a look at it, doesn't matter who's using it. It's still a Schedule 1 drug, unfortunately. And until that is resolved within the federal system and until cannabis is taking off the Schedule 1 drug, it's really like cocaine, meth. It could be simple possession, simple use. Unfortunately, that's not it.
Yeah, we see a lot of people forget that when they get jumped
Yes.
up there.
The new one that is going to be coming out is going to be DUIs, not just because of alcohol, but because of cannabis, right?
Yeah,
So,
we see
smoking and
those.
driving is the big one coming up for us.
Um,
And that is exactly it. It's going to account and it's going to be treated as such. And we're not sure if it may have a harsher punishment in our system due to the fact that alcohol isn't a Schedule 1 drug, but cannabis is. So now
Makes
you're
sense.
drinking and smoking.
Um,
It's kind of like, are you drinking and bumping cocaine?
yeah,
And so it's something to really take a look at in that problem that we're going to continue seeing this conflict in the law that is very, very hard right now.
so we've kind of been talking in the context of somebody who was undocumented, and then those consequences. What happens if they leave and try and come in legally? Are all these consequences? Is it a similar situation where somebody's here on a work or student visa?
Yes,
Like
all of these
it's
consequences.
just officer report discretion if that violation gets reported, and then when they go to renew their visa, they're going to
Yes,
have all these the same issues
yes.
essentially.
Correct,
Okay.
right? Any visa, any process, any adjustment. I really, until you really get off the system, my office really works with my clients, not just through the adjustment process, but in order to remind them the importance of becoming a legal permanent resident, but not only to become, I'm sorry, a naturalized citizen, due to the fact that that's really when you leave the system. One of the funny things that many, many people believe is that once you're a legal permanent resident,
Mhm.
that's it, you're good. Actually, that's not the case. Even with criminal activity, DUIs, let's say if you have an extreme DUI and the government feels that, hey, you've had other things in your background, they are able to still place you in a deportation proceeding. Legal permanent residency is not permanent, right? It's just the ability to be here for a longer term. So, naturalizing, applying for naturalization, especially right now, things are moving really great. Naturalization is moving a little bit faster and it's a good time to apply. It's really the true of getting off the system and leaving this system in order for you to really have complete freedom, right?
So if you're a permanent resident, you don't have any additional protections over somebody with a visa. Essentially, from you could still get
Yeah.
deported for DUI or something along those lines. What about
Yes.
for entering and leaving the country? Let's say you get that excessive speed conviction. Are you going to get additional scrutiny if you leave the
Yes.
US and try and come back in?
So, entry into the United States is at the discretion of the immigration officer. This law of immigration is one that covers, including United States citizens, actually. Every person must, coming through our borders, must do immigration. That's why everybody that leaves and comes back, we go through immigration, right?
Yeah,
And so we have global entry, all of this. So even as a United States citizen, you don't notice, but hey, immigration law covers you. It's a very broad law that not many of us recognize
right.
as being, hey, why am I a citizen but still having to do this? But yes, it can have
Yeah.
consequences. I everything in this system is reportable. So if the officer can take a look at your information, notice that you have an excessive speeding, they might not and deny you entry. So I've had people that have to go through second inspection. Second inspection is at the airport or at a port of entry where ICE would do an extensive background in order to allow you to come in. They'll do an interview, and this is about 6 to 8 hours of being detained and looking at your
Um,
background to see if you're worth coming. And even after all of that, they can still say, "Hey, we don't want you." So look, it's it's silly, but really obeying basic traffic things is if I can't trust you in the small, then can I trust you in the big, right?
yeah, no, yeah. A lot of people, I think, come to Arizona and get tripped up, particularly with excessive speed, because most states don't have a similar law. So, like in California, if you're going, 95 and a 65, you're gonna get a civil speeding ticket. And in Arizona, depending on the officer, you'll get an excessive speed ticket, or you may even get booked into jail for a few hours with that. And
Ex-
people are always surprised.
Exactly. So now you're looking at that jail time. Now you're looking at a visit from ICE because they're right there from you.
Mm,
Right? That's simple. Hey,
yeah,
I
good
was
point.
going a little fast and not driving safe. And now I just thought it was going to be a couple hours, right? Well, a couple hours
Yeah,
can turn into a couple months in Eloy for
yeah.
something so very simple.
Uh,
So
what a mess.
yeah, best
Uh,
advice is follow the traffic rules are real important.
yeah, then there's a lot of them that you don't. I didn't know them all until I started doing traffic law. I mean, there are very many. Um, Another thing that comes up. So the in the criminal court system, a conviction is if the judge enters a judgment against you. That's
Yes,
not for immigration. Conviction is broad, right? It's basically
agreed.
any admission of the facts that
Guilt.
support the charge.
Yes. So for us, a lot of times immigration and criminal law run together, right? We meet at a nexus, but they're very different in parallel because conviction for us is a lot of things. Even if you're having to do a diversion program,
Mm,
right? So it's like, hey, I just had to do some classes. That's what my clients tell me all the time. Yeah, I just had to do some classes because in reality, the reason that they make it seem like nothing, it's because they really felt like it was very
right.
simple and it was nothing. Just had to do some classes. Well, those classes are a conviction, right?
Yeah,
It's an admission of guilt.
yeah. We see that they have to do a guilty plea on the front end, and the court defers entering judgments. They do the classes and then dismisses it, but we still have that guilty plea, which is the hard part.
That's what it is.
Yeah,
That's where we lie. It's like, hey, you said you did this. What's happening? Right. So for us, it's more like in a simple, really basic ways. Think about your parent. You have to tell your parent everything, right? You
um,
walk through that door, you're like, where are you? What are we doing? What happened? It's kind of the same disclosure statement. You're just kind of have this invisible person walking with you at all times, asking and accounting for everything that you've done. And for us, conviction is a really big thing, right? One of the biggest things as well is, well, it got dismissed after several years, or it got expunged, or it got sealed. I
set
don't have
aside.
to
Yeah,
disclose it, right? That's not the case. You have to disclose it. It must be disclosed. Is a full disclosure policy, and like we said, the question states, "Have you ever?" It doesn't state anything. So that's one of the biggest things I also hear. Well, it's been sealed. I don't have to say anything. Well,
yeah.
that's
I guess even if in Arizona, if we can get it set aside, but it's still
yeah,
going to show on your criminal background that you had this conviction and it was set aside, so
that's
it
true.
doesn't go away.
And yeah, it does not. For us, does not go away. And you have a reporting duty, right?
Mhm.
You have to say, hey, I've done this. And so whether it gets set aside, it does not, it gets sealed, it does not. It's important for your employment and for your credit and for your life and for different things. But for immigration, it still must be disclosed.
What about if you have a crime that was committed when you were a juvenile? So like if you're a citizen, you do whatever when you're 16,
Yeah.
and you turn 18, you can actually get it. The record's destroyed.
Correct. So
Um,
juveniles are very interesting because certain things have still to be disclosed while they're taken into account in that juvenile state. However, a lot of it still gets a adult standard. So things like shoplifting, you have a petty theft exception, which is less than $250. But anything above that, hey, it doesn't really matter. Anything with drugs are a no.
Even as
I
a
like
juvenile, those are going to follow you into adulthood as an immigration violation.
yes, I've had a lot of juveniles that have gotten in trouble for juvenile things,
Yeah,
and we don't really think of them really big, but for them they are. And unfortunately, those are the big ones, right? I was destroying property, right? I was doing drugs. Oh, outside curfew one, it's like I was walking the streets. So like 11:30 p.m. at night. Anything with arms is a
Oh,
no, nothing with guns. Guns are an absolute hard no, as equal as drugs.
gotcha.
Okay, so that's a really big one. Like discharging a gun in like city property or like city ordinance or near like a home or anything like that. Those are really big ones as well, due to the fact that it has to do with a weapon. As you're not allowed to really obtain a gun. They don't want you to have any kind of weapons training. So those are really, like I said, some small things can become a really big thing in our system.
But it seems like something we run into is there are no good choices.
No.
Like we get a criminal case and the facts are not in our favor. It's already happened. We can't, you know,
Yeah.
what do you do when there's no, sometimes there's just no good choices, it seems like
Uh,
at the
a
end.
lot of help of the community. So that is really community service, churches, picking up trash. Listen, if it's a balance between a yes and a no and a good moral standard, how did you learn your lesson and how did you change? How can you demonstrate that with evidence? Look, a lot of my clients tell me, well, I've changed. Great. That's wonderful. Show me,
Gotcha.
right? I think that your word is great. And I think that you're a wonderful person, but I cannot, my system only works on documents. I don't ever send emails. That's not a thing that we have. We send letters to each other, right? And so I have to provide the government with how were you good? And your word doesn't count, right? Because it's not great. And
Yeah.
so show me with documentation from the moment I received this issue, from the moment I had this issue, this is how my life changed. I stopped drinking, went to AA every meeting, right? Did so many, started, I even got a sponsor. And then I became a sponsor. I changed my life, right? Or I decided I'm picking up trash on the side of the road. Here's all my community service hours. Soup kitchens, anything that really helps the community to show that, like, hey, after my really life around, I've learned. And also, I love those community services have signatures and time logs
Oh,
and places and letters of recommendation about your good moral character, participating in church services, part of a community. All of that goes to attest to your character, right? Your character is what is in question here, not your actions, not anything, but it's who you are. Do we want you, right?
yeah. So if you're in one of those situations where you're not getting the outcome you want, it kind of changes to rehabilitation for your character at that point. So
Yes.
just even if your application to naturalize is, delayed, you're going to use that time to rehabilitate.
Yeah. Yeah, rehabilitation is one of really the best things I can tell my clients, to be able to show, hey, this is what I've done. But most important, save those documents,
Yeah.
save them, take pictures, scan them, do something, write down the organization that you did them with. Why? Like I said, if down the road the law changes, you decide to naturalize, if anything comes up, all of this is going to be really important evidence. So I am a minimalist. I love not having a lot of things. I appreciate my super empty open spaces and cleanliness. However, for my clients, hoard,
Yeah.
hoard all your papers. If you're out there, listen to me. Hoard the documents. Make sure that they are safe. Make sure that every time you move them in a place that you know where they're going to be. Go invest in a safe. Go put them in a place that you know where they're going to be in your possession at all times. No idea how many times I've heard, I used to have these documents, but I lost them. Or I used to have this, but it's now gone. And even though some documents or some things we're able to retrieve,
Right.
uh, just because records are still existent today, that makes it twice as hard for you, right? And it's not fresh and it's not new, and we can't show and determine a lot of things. So hear me out there. Keep your documents,
Mm.
hoard.
Well, yeah, and it sounds like putting aside that you could help them get, accomplish their immigration goals, they need to talk to you for to understand how the criminal case might impact it. They probably need
Yeah.
to talk to you to help put together a plan on how to achieve their goals. If they're dealing with a criminal case, what are they going to do after that to line themselves up to get where they want to be?
Exactly. So those are some things important. My office makes plans
Oh,
for
awesome.
you. So what we do is, hey, we all want to have an understanding of what's happening, and that really is a big thing that we do. Knowledge is so important. So many clients come to me and tell me, "I'm not sure what happened." Well, it happened to you.
Um,
What do you mean? And it's lack of understanding, lack of communication, and that isn't serving my client's purpose for a better life, right? I'm their counselor, and my clients have extreme different backgrounds. And some clients come from very difficult situations or very low understanding and communications with their families. So their lack of understanding of what is actually happening to them is very low. And I don't appreciate that in the fact that some people dismiss that. I don't. You need a plan for your life, and we are here to give you one. If you don't have one right now, we'll tell you, hey, this is what's coming down the road, right? Immigration is on the news daily. It's on everywhere. It's something that we talk about. It's something that is a central point of everything right now. And the law isn't steady for us. For example, employment law, they've had civil rights law since 1968. My law changed last week. So
Hard to
definitely
keep up.
keep up, yeah, right?
uh,
Make sure, look, have your case looked at consistently, have other people look at different strategies. And there's a lot of things, like I said, this administration's promise is that a lot of these issues are going to be resolved in order to make our system maybe a little bit smoother, where we're not getting caught up on such small things.
yeah,
But yeah, we're not sure, just because we're coming from an administration that really much cared about the very little
yeah.
things, right? If little things are not put together, then you can't have the big things. So, like I said, it's only been a few months and we've had severe changes from the last 4 years. So, we're getting ready for our next 4 years and see what changes there are going to be. So, if you're out there and undocumented, have your case looked at. If you are out there looking to do your naturalization and you've had any kind of traffic citations, any kind of issues, any kind of misdemeanors, don't go alone to your naturalization interview. Make sure you hired or look for an attorney to give you some pointers. A lot of attorneys, even my office, will take a look at your case and we'll go with you to your interview to make sure
Oh,
that you're
awesome.
not facing immigration alone. They are not your friend and they're not there for you.
The
They're
the
not there to help
questions
you.
designed to elicit
Yeah,
answers that are going to keep you out.
yeah, their job is to say no. And look, everybody's got a job. It isn't right, it isn't wrong, it isn't anything. It's just
Mhm.
their job. That's their policy right now, and that's okay.
Yeah,
But that doesn't mean that you have to be that way and give yourself up to the lion. No. Have a fighter. Come on.
yeah.
Right? So those are some important things to always take a look at. Look, talk to an attorney, talk to somebody, make sure that if even if you think it's silly, it might not be to that immigration officer.
Makes sense. Well, and I'll add your contact info into the
Thank
video
you.
and put it in the comments there. And I would recommend that I recommend anybody when we see they're not a U.S. citizen to reach out to you and have that conversation at least so they understand what impact their criminal case might have on that. Because it is a specialized. We're all specialized. Well, we can't use that word. We're all focused on a particular area of practice, and it's a lot of work to keep up on your own area. We do the misdemeanor
Yeah.
traffic, and we're really good at that, but we don't do immigration. So they need to talk to you.
I really tell, and it's funny because that's exactly what I tell my clients. Like, look, if I got a foot problem, I'm not going to a heart surgeon. Like that's just kind of it.
Yeah,
Right. And it's silly, but it's funny. And another thing I tell my clients is this: my cancer is not your cancer.
true.
We're all different, and we all have a whole different set of patterns, problems, entries, situations, and how that situation unrolled. It never unrolls the same, even if it might be.
Right.
Look, everybody's got something different. Treat your case that way. That's okay, right? Treat your case in a way that it's you. It's your issue. It's your case. It's your morality, right? Because at the end of the day, that's our standard. How moral are you? How good are you? And how can you show me that?
Makes sense. And it's so broad, and we don't know what that federal agent's going to think.
I have no idea, and it's one of those things that my clients, we have a fun practice. My practice is fun and I care for my clients, but we do a lot of things. Even when we do go to interviews, we play a newlywed game, we play do you know who wants to be a millionaire as
Yeah.
we do naturalization practices. Like, hey, we try to make it really fun because unfortunately I know that I need to be really well prepared for a lot of things I don't know, probably, right? We don't have discovery in our practice. So we often get surprised with surprise evidence, right? As I discussed previously, we've had that moment of like, well, if you're married, why are you on Tinder looking for women? Ooh, well, we didn't discuss that. What's
Yeah.
going on there, right? And so those are surprise evidence. Those moments are uncomfortable for everybody. And
Yeah.
so it's important.
Well, this goes back to tell your attorney everything because they're trying to help.
Yes,
We don't
please.
like surprises.
No, I am not a surprise person.
Oh,
I don't even like surprise parties. This seems really attacking. Like, no, surprise, home intrusion. No way. But no, look, I've heard everything, everything. And is it good? Is it bad? I don't know. I'm not here to judge you. I'm here
no,
to help you. I have no judgment, zero. My job is to look at a set of evidence and figure out how that works best in my case and in my plan. What feeling behind that? Is it right? Is it wrong? Did you do it? Did you not? I'm not here to judge you. That's not for me. That's between you and your partner or upstairs. Not for me. But I
uh,
am here to help you through all of those and advocate the fact that you are a good person. And you know what? I tell this to everybody. Everybody does good and bad, and we all have those moments that it's like, "Ugh, I shouldn't have been speeding, everybody. We all have that. But some of us have the ability to fix it really simple, what some of them have carried severe consequences.
yeah,
So, look, something simple, it's really big. Well, make sure to just have a plan on what you're going to do with that.
I like it. That makes a bad situation better having a plan. Um,
Always.
cool.
Really.
But that's been so much great information, and I'm really excited to be able to share that. Thanks, Jessica.
Thanks, Chris. I really appreciate you having me. I will send out the information in order for you to post it as well, so your clients are able to
Will
see
do.
what the actual questions from immigration are on the questionnaires that we get from them. And so, like that, they'll be able to focus. Like, hey, this is what is actually being asked of me down the road, or I'm starting to prepare for what is being asked of me.
Awesome. I'll link to those two, and then I'm also going to put this on our website, and I'll put those forms up there, and a written text to go with this for everybody as well.
Awesome. That sounds great. Thank you so
Awesome.
much for
Thank
having
you.
me.
Appreciate it.